Listen, Shoot. I'm your host, Shannon Monihan, and my guest today, Stephen. I'm so curious because I'm going to let Stephen introduce himself
Oh,
and
that's
give
a
a little
scary.
bit about your resume because I would go on for about 2 hours just talking about your fascinating background. So, welcome, Stephen.
Hey, how you guys doing? All right, I am Stephen Johnson. I am a retired military guy of 30 years. Uh, my life has been a whirlwind of excitement, I guess, for me. I started off in the Army uh, as a 17-year-old guy who knew nothing from Memphis, Tennessee. And I stumbled on everything that I've done in the military: airborne school, sniper school, door kicking. So went special forces. Was special forces for about 22 years. I'm an 18 Delta. That's sort of like a PA equivalent, you know, without the degree behind it. So we specialize in trauma. So anything that's gross and that's what we specialize in. From there, I was selected to go to a SMOOS special mission unit in Virginia. So we call it behind the curtain, so to speak. So you literally come off the books of, open source military, and you just become a stealthy type of guy. So my last 14 years,
Stealthy, correct?
yes, stealthy type of guy.
What do you
So,
mean by that? Expand on that, Stephen.
yeah. So, uh, my organization, or where I come from, we sort of like deal with intelligence. So with intelligence, you can't have this big footprint of personal persona out there. So we sort of like become invisible, if I could say that much. And
Some people refer to that as gray man.
yes, I was the gray man, hence the gray man. And so we specialize in going out and looking for things that our government wants found. And that was my job for like the last 14 years. And right at the end of that, I started teaching, working projects, and now I'm sort of like this jack of all, master of none. So I'm reinventing myself.
Hence our episode. I think this is a really interesting time for everyone. You and I met in a process of reinventing ourselves, kind of. Stephen and I met on a project, I guess you'd call it a contract we were working a couple months ago. And it's interesting as people come together in different phases of their life, they have to find themselves, at some point or another, you're reinventing yourself in your whether it be your career, whether it be your personal life, whatever that looks like. And I'm always fascinated and intrigued by amazing people who do that with such positivity and so fluidly. And I think it's a lesson for everyone. Some people resist change. I embrace it and usually jump off the cliff. I love change, and and I think you're a person who does that very, very well. What are some of the times in your career where you had to reinvent yourself that it was, you know,
I was actually thinking about that a few minutes ago. I literally,
you have reinvented yourself just within your military career,
I had to reinvent myself so many times in my military career.
and then as one of your jobs, you were reinventing yourself
Yeah,
so
yes.
many times. So, as I would say, an expert in navigating reinvention of one's identity, what were some of the more interesting times you've done that, where you had learning coming from?
I have to put it this way. My job stayed the same, medical, but to get to certain places, I had to reinvent myself and come up with a different mindset to like go after that position. So my reinvention was not only physical, but it was mental. Say like when I went special forces. Um, this was back in the 80s. Like all the guys were like Vietnam vets and stuff. Not that many black guys in special forces or special ops for that matter. So I had to navigate waters that were a little tricky for us. Like, how do I fit in? Do I have the physical and mental fortitude to, keep up with guys? But like I said, that was all.
What can I stop you on that really quick? There were probably moments like I had in the project we just did of self-doubt
Uh-huh,
whether you fit in, as you
uh-huh.
know. Oh, by the way, I do have cry precisions and I do have tactical clothes. This anyway, I pulled that out today, but yeah, fitting in and reinventing yourself. So what were moments in those opportunities where you had self-doubt, and what gave you the inner reflection to understand, no, I can do this, even though I might, like, be odd man out. I've been that, you've been
Right,
that.
right, right. I think most
What gave
people,
you confidence?
you look at your surroundings, just saying I want to go special operations like Ranger, Navy SEAL, Special Forces. You're like putting your mind into like that. We've built this up to where it's like this elite force. Like
Right.
these guys are like freaking
I'm here, there.
right, right. And
Yeah.
we can't hold a candle to these guys because they're physically, they're physically, they're mentally, they're just the guys that you look on television, the Jason Bournes of the world. But if you step back, those guys were in your same position when they tried out. It's just that it's something that they wanted. So I will tell you this. I looked at one of my instructors and I said, okay, that guy's been in SF for a while because he's a little burly and a little, look like he's a little slow, but looks are deceiving. So I mentally prepared myself by saying, there have been thousands of guys that have passed this course before me, and I won't be one of those guys that, take myself out of the game mentally by saying I can't do it.
Hmm.
So I look at guys and say, if he could do it, I could do it. So that's sort of like my
Sizing up the room.
right,
Walking
exactly,
into the room.
exactly. You
Right.
walk in and you see what's there, and you say, okay, I think I could fit in here. So
Honestly, and that's so funny. I'm rarely intimidated doing projects or jumping into tactical training, which is my kind of environment. The environment you and I were in a couple months ago, I was actually intimidated until for the
it
first day.
showed.
And
It showed.
what's that?
It showed a little bit.
Yeah, in the beginning. And then as soon as I, like you said, sized up the environment and got a feel for what I was working with, and that I actually do have the resume to kind of step.
I'm gonna have to like just throw a little dirt or whatever on that project within itself because it was sort of like thrown into our laps at the last moment, and it was sort of like piecemealed all the way through, and it's sort of like hard to get a grasp on what to do if it's piecemeal. But once we got on the ground, we figured out, all right, that's what we're doing. All right, I think we roll right into it. So
Well, you coming into that situation with your resume,
right.
I'm sure was much more comfortable sizing up versus me
Uh,
coming into my resume. But it is about, but I should have run for the hills the first day, but I didn't. In that situation, I was reading the room, reading the project at hand, and
mhm.
then recognizing, oh, okay, actually, this is a daunting and intimidating group, but I actually understand my purpose and what I can accomplish here.
You probably understood more of it than most of the other guys that because they had one frame of reference to scream and yell, as opposed to psychologically, you're like up and down trying to get in people's minds.
Yeah.
So I think your background sort of allowed you to assess that situation a little better than they did.
Right. So back to your world of reinventing yourself. You kind of left off with you talking about that intimidation that got you to the next level. What kind of came after special forces? You became you were, actually, I forget where we left off that.
So I was special forces, and within special forces itself, there's so many gates and things that you have to do to stay relevant. And a lot of it was like just personality. The entire special ops community is like personality driven. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody's going to get to schools, get the cool stuff, but if you're one of those people that we call blue falcons, like stab people in the back, not a team player, you'll get ousted pretty fast.
Blue Falcon, is that sort of like a narcissist?
Yes, and it's a code word for buddy effer. So Blue Falcon
Buddy what?
effer.
Oh,
So so if you look and that's what people in the military call people that stab them in the back a lot. So if you're not a team player, it'll show, and you will somebody will get a something in their gut to just want to get rid of you. So you got to navigate that as well. And you're like, oh my God, it's so much stuff. It's political, it's physical, it's mental. You got to know your job. Here's one for you. I had a guy that I was on a team, my first team, and my team started to call me in, and he was chewing me out for some reason. We had just capped back from an exercise, and we were like in the we're in a foxhole for like 3 days straight. Ice storm. It's cold out there, and we had to walk. Literally, we had to walk 3 miles at night. But an ice storm knocked all the trees down, and we had like 100-pound packs, and it took us 8 hours to go 3 miles. That's how heavy our packs were and how dense the woods and the stuff. So we got there, and I'm making my little medical rounds, and I'm looking at the guy has a tick on his arm. This guy's from Kentucky.
I'm from Kentucky.
Oh, he has bird dogs. This guy knows more about ticks than I probably do in my medical background.
Did he know he had the tick?
Yeah, he pointed it out. So I walked up to him. I said, "Hey, you want me to take that off for you?" He's like, "Nah, just give me some tweezers or some ointment. I'll do it." Yep. I said, "Sure." He's like, "Yeah." So I was like, "All right, got it." That was the only medical thing that I remember for those 3 days that happened. So I got back to the team room, and my team started to call me in. He was like, "Hey, Steven, your job here is one thing. It's medical, blah, blah, blah." And he's chewing me out. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what the heck is he talking about? And then it dawned on me. It was only one medical. He said, if a guy's sick or injured or whatever, I expect you to take care of him, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, got it. So I said, hey, roger that. And I didn't make any buts about it. I just knew my surroundings at that moment. And later, that guy tried his best. The Blue Falcon tried his best to like get into my good grace. And I was sitting there looking at him. I said, hey, guess what? I'm going to be frank with you. I'm going to do everything I need to do to work with you. We will never be friends. We would never go out, hang out, do anything. Why? It's because you took my confidence and you crapped on it. And I know who to look out for now. And he was just looking at me like, whoa, no. I said, tap dance all you want to. I said, I'm a straight shooter, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel about you. And we deployed, and we did things together for the next 3-4 years. But I always kept that in my mind that, you have to watch out for people, and you have to adjust. Sometimes you don't have to say anything, but sometimes you have to say things. You have to let guys know where you're coming from. But from that moment on, like when I was in the special forces community, anybody that knew me sort of like had my back. They were like, you're talking about Steven? Oh man, that guy's like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, cool, I guess I made an impression on people. So
well, you make an incredible impression on people, and you're a standout because you are very calm and read your space and react to it and let your brilliance come out slowly. But you bring up an incredible topic that we spoke on, talked about when we were together, and that was how to navigate the blue Falcons. You just call
yes,
narcissists and monsters.
I think Blue Falcon's sort of a better name, but if you say it in the military, that's like you're cursing me.
Okay, and this comes back to reinventing yourself and being resilient. So I think everyone goes through life and they can either play the victim and or they can move forward. And all of us are faced with opportunities to go one way or the other. And nothing, if people met you or we might see all bubbly and happy on this podcast. And I think our demeanor is that, but by God, my background has been riddled with having to deal with Blue Falcons.
Oh my God, yes.
And navigating those kinds of people. And it's a challenge. And you bring up a good point. There's time to just kind of navigate them. And then there's a time to call them out. on their
exactly.
behavior.
Exactly.
Um, do you engage the petty tyrant, or do you just navigate around it and let the colors show itself? That's a wonderful point. It's funny. I'm gonna go back to when I first met you. There was a room full of people, and you were just sitting very kind of solemnly on the at the table, and everyone's all, it's a room of alpha male people, and this and that and the other, and I looked around, and all of a sudden we get up to go in the cars and leave, and all of a sudden you're following us. I'm like, who's this guy following us? Like, what's he doing? But you sat there and observed and
Yeah.
read the room before you engaged, and I think that's something most people need to do, because you're never quite sure who's in the mix and who the blue falcons.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And with that, these people, their sole purpose is to intimidate you, to like make you feel less than the person that you are, and just to make themselves feel better or look better. Your job is to not think what other people think. Just say, hey, look, I know what I bring to the table, and I know my worth. So I guess you gotta learn how to convey that. Uh,
Yes.
I will tell you this. I had an interview yesterday with this hospital trying to hire me for their supply chain, a supply chain business partner, and I'm on the phone with three women. I think they're in their 30s to mid 40s, and I'm like, okay, and and it's on a Zoom conference, and I'm like, how do you read somebody on a Zoom conference?
Yeah.
Their demeanor. So I had to listen to their questions and see who had the bubbly personality, who is more strict and stern, and who is that outlier to say, who's looking for just the negative stuff. So with that, you just got to know who you're talking to and what you're doing, and you just got to go from that point on. You just can't run in a room, start yakking like those guys on the project we were on. So
Who are all awesome, and there were no blue falcons in that
no,
group, I'm
no
sure.
Blue Falcons, but yeah, I mean, I think they misread the intent of the entire project. So,
Yeah.
which was funny.
And there were some blue falcons that were being dealt with, though. Like, they
Yeah.
encountered, as a group, we had to help people that were encountering blue falcons, and yeah, so it was interesting. But going back to your career and your, kind of your trajectory and reinventing yourself and going to that next place, when you went into the next phase, what was interesting about that? Because I feel like that next phase, that you
Oh, that was
the gray man phase, if you will.
a pretty good phase. Now, that
It's
was
so fascinating. Sorry, I
that
just
was a phase that I was special forces at Fort Campbell, and old friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, you like what you're doing?" I said, "I love it." He's like, "I got a job that you're gonna love more." I was like, "Okay, can you tell me about it?" I can't say anything about it, but somebody will call you. I was like, "Okay." So, but I knew that guy. We were on a team for several years together and everything. And if he said that he loved it, all right, I took his word for it. So for the next year and a half, it was all a leap of faith. I had no clue what I was doing. And over that process, I had no clue where I was going or what to expect. But over that process, as they gave us all the training that you're like, oh, okay, that's the direction we're going.
yeah.
So,
Well, and just to stop you in a moment in time, because again, we all have these opportunities to go one river or the other, stay the safe path.
mhm,
It's not like you weren't doing a cool job before that.
right,
Okay. I mean,
exactly.
so and the times where I've taken the biggest leaps off a cliff, my
Mhm.
family's always like, "Oh my gosh, why would you leave being an international flight attendant? Why would you leave this wonderful corporate job? Why would you
Right, right,
leave medical aesthetics for tactical?" And people don't understand that. Sometimes we are not allowed to reinvent ourselves out of choice, and sometimes we have a choice to reinvent ourselves.
true, true.
Okay, so
I will say this, that I see people. I mean, I've always I was under the impression that people don't pick careers; careers pick people, and I say that for one simple reason, because we allow the careers to pick us because of the choices we make. let's just say a guy that's in high school, 12th grade, he's not going to college, but he wants to go. He's working at McDonald's. Before he leaves McDonald's, he becomes like a shift manager. He
Mhm.
goes from making X amount of, like minimum wage or whatever to making a salary now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And before you know it, that salary and his attitude is like, well, I want to move out my house, out my mom's house. I want to get this. I want to get, and all of a sudden you just took that job and made it a career because now you're indebted to an apartment, a car. You need the money to pay those things and keep your lifestyle going. And before you know it, 10 years down the road, 20 years, you're a store manager and you're like, how the heck did I get into like fast food or, and that job pick you because you allowed it to like hold you down as opposed to just walk away from it. And a lot of people do that now.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I love that you're bringing up this point. I don't mean to lecture, but I end up lecturing a lot of kids right now that are in that transition of college and then real world, and they think they have to pick their job because of the degree programs at the college, or they get into a lifestyle, like you said, working a job, and then they just stay on that track because, well, I'm already here and whatever,
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then I see adults our age, at that point over 40 and plus, and they won't make a change because of retirement or this or a family,
Exactly.
their debt or their house or their boats or this or that, and yet they're not living their authentic self. But they
Exactly.
and again, I'm a little bit unique in the sense that even though I was a single mother of two and I'm out there kind of doing it for myself, I still will take off and jump into another thing. And I don't know if it's crazy or what, but I think people, if they would trust two things, I think if they would visualize without all the kind of set boundaries they have
Mhm.
of their existing life, if they would visualize what they want their life to be, and then also if they would actually look at maybe taking changes, making changes to their life and compromising certain things so they can actually live that authentic life.
Well,
um,
that's it.
yeah, I think people get fearful and stay frozen. So many students too, kids coming out of college, they're making decisions, and I'm like, make the decision on how you want to spend your 8 hours a day. Like, what kind of life? What people do you want to be around? Do you want to talk to people? Do you want to be behind a laptop? Do
Right,
you
right.
wanna- anyway, I pray people get their time on this earth and at least get to spend some of that time on the earth actually purposeful doing what makes them joyous.
Right.
I fear not all people do that. And I actually think COVID was helpful at helping people have that
Realize that.
opportunity to reset. You and I do it anyway. I think
Yeah.
because we're crazy, but I think other people saw the opportunity because of that calming down and stopping the train.
The I got married in January. My wife hasn't met. She's met my kids, but she never met my mom and siblings. So we went there this past weekend,
That's right.
and because of COVID, I stopped over. We stayed at a friend of mine's house because he has a bigger house, and we spent the time there. But back and forth to my siblings' house. I'm looking at them, and I'm looking at him, and he has this book of that he keeps every time I come there. I give him something like money from different countries or a rug or something because he loves to travel, and he goes to like the touristy places like Brazil, Venice, and places like that. And he has this book of just currency, and I was like, started looking through it, and most of the currency through there is what I gave him. And he said, when people come over here, they're like, man, you've been to a lot of places. And he's like, well, I won't lie. I haven't been to like 75% of those places. My childhood friend goes to these places and he brings me money back. And he's like, I don't know how this guy does it, but he'll go do a job here. He'll stop. He'll go do this and he'll go do that. And he was sitting there saying, man, I've been stuck in my house for almost 2 years because he works for FedEx. And I've been stuck and nobody wants to go back to work. I've been stuck here for 2 years sitting here, like I want to get around people, I want to do things, but that was the life he chose at a coming out of college.
Right.
And he's a single guy, really no debt. He can go do other stuff. But what we've been, I guess, brainwashed to believe is you got to have a job to ensure that your house, your car, everything's taken care of, as opposed to, hey, maybe that'll take care of it more so than this will. Or maybe I'll be happier over here taking like a $2,000 cut as opposed to just being miserable making $2,000 extra. So,
What do you think it is that we could that you encourage people? What is it you tell them to access to trust themselves? Like, is that what it is?
I look at people and say, hey, what makes you happy?
Yeah,
You know, if cooking makes you happy, why are you selling cars?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
unless car selling is making a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but if that's not making you happy, but it's this restaurant over here that could probably, that wants you to work there. Why don't you just step over? Hey, why don't you step over there for like weekends and
Yeah.
say, hey, I'll try out weekends.
That's a great point. Moonlighting. So
Mhm.
what helped me is I couldn't do it when I was even when I was a flight attendant for Delta, I did it. But when I was working a corporate job, or I would moonlight with the entrepreneurial
Yeah,
people. And so I mean, I always say it like this: like you got to have an ATM machine, and sometimes you have to look at your job as an
yeah,
ATM machine so you can go do what you really want to do or
right.
take that risk. But
And
um,
I'm unique in that since I retired from the military, I got a constant check coming in.
right, right,
So I could take the time to say, hey, I want to go try this. So since I've been out, I will tell you a couple things that I've tried. I opened up my own consulting business, so I consult, and that was only about 5 months out of a year, but it made a lot of money. And now I'm sort of like cutting back on that. But I've tried a couple other jobs out just to say, hey, I want to go and do that. Why? Because it's outdoors mailman. I literally tried out to be a mailman.
I
And
so
look, only reason I tried out for it because I thought about it. I said, I don't know the city that well. Here, I live in St. Cloud. I don't know the city that well. And who would know more if but a mailman who goes and drives all around? And I was like, I want to go try it out. But I didn't set my focus on the mailman. I actually set it on upper management. And when I got there, I let them know that. I said, hey, look, I'm only doing this until I move up the chain. And they were like, huh? I said, yeah, I'm looking at his job, not this one. And they were like, awesome. And literally, they were like, wow. And when I got there, it was such disarray. You would think a mail carrier, or they've been doing this for years, this stuff would be like laid out. Like you could give me a book and say, here, go deliver this mail, and this is what you got to do. No, I was totally set back. I was like, you guys been in business for over 200 years, and this is what it's come to. I was
so
like, go
oh,
ahead, go
no,
ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I know so many special forces guys that come out of that world, like you,
Mhm.
and you're, but you've lived such a filtered world with wonderful organization, and then you
Mhm.
come into the real world, and you're like, oh gosh, why is it, why are things so? God, it's great because it's so.
Right.
But what I love about you and your reinvention post that special forces world is your positive attitude, and like no ego.
Mhm.
You'll do anything. Yeah, I mean, it's like it, and I think that's so lovely. Someone contacted me recently. We were talking about the kind of work we were doing and about to do, and they were asking me where I wanted to work in the country, and
Uh-huh.
they're like, oh, people just want to work, close to home, close to home. I said, I'm going to stop you there because two of the guys I know in this last gig I just did, the most elite two guys literally came to do this project. One guy because he wanted to see where Goonies was filmed in Oregon. Okay. I go, and the
Yeah,
other one just wanted to see the beach. I go, so
exactly.
I assume, and these were the two most elite you had in the group,
Right,
and
right.
their purpose for coming out to do this project had nothing to do with, so
Eh,
don't assume you know people. And
mhm.
right?
That is totally, it was totally funny. But I will say this: I I sat down with the postmaster and he was like, give me your honest take on what's going on here. And I was like, okay. And I just let him have it. But in a sense where I'm not trying to like, throw stones. I'm just saying that I think it could be run better. I think that some of the things that are not here should be here. And he let me know that we got a, what they call them, the unions that don't allow to do things. I said, but I'll put it to you, you are the United States government. Okay. I know you have a union contract that you have to abide by, but I will tell you this 100%. The government will not hamstring themselves into a corner where they can't do anything. I said it goes against government policies. And I guarantee you there's a rule that circumvents any contract that you may have with the government, making sure that the government's not liable. So by saying that, I would get these books and he said, hey, you got Route 31. I said, okay, cool. What would I like?
You did take the job.
I took it for about a month, just almost 2 months.
And you're talking about not working at the desk in there, but actually
No,
the route.
actually out on the routes and driving.
Were you walking or were you driving? Were you
Both.
the walking guy or the
Both.
driving guy?
Both guys, they do same. Like you got to drive your mail to a start point, and then you got to walk it,
Okay.
and then you got to drive. So
Okay.
I was sitting there looking. I was like, "Where's the start point?" And they were like, "Follow the mail." I'm like, "What if the mail's out of order?" They were like, "Well, sometimes it's out of order, but most of the time it's not." So I had two incidents. Once when it was totally out of order, and then the other one I was like, "Well, what the place that I start don't have mail?" Well, you go to the next spot. Well, then I just totally don't know the route then.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, before I left, I told him, I said, hey, look, I will give you a blueprint to how to get these guys to write their routes and stuff. And he was like, how do you do that? I said, you're the postmaster. You guys are the managers. You walk in and say, hey, I want to see what your, I said, this is how you do it. You walk up to him and say, here, this is your, the city map. I need to know if you're proficient in your job. Show me where you start, where you go, where you walk, and everything. Mm-hmm. I said, that's not telling them what to do. That's just you trying to see if they have proficiency in the task at hand. And he was like, wow, I never thought of it that way. And then right then and there, I just thought about it. I was like, I do have like 30 years of military experience, like trying to manage things. And here's this guy that probably started out as a male guy that never knew any of this. And now he's like dealing with contracts and everything. And he's not stuck, but that job chose him at some point, or he chose it when he was young and he just stayed there all the way, not knowing how to do management.
Right.
So
when you came, okay, so let's get to your post, retirement. You had the last job you were doing, and then you come out and you're like, okay, I'm out of that world. Now I'm in the civilian world. So you're talking about the civilian world. I think a lot of people, and during COVID, I think a lot of people lost their jobs. What they thought was their safe job wasn't even. Becoming a Lyft driver, or they're starting a home business. And I think these little entrepreneur spirits are budding up everywhere, and I love it. And especially, and that's happening in the civilian world. What are you finding that is sparking your direction now? Is it because of, it's not money centric, but it's
I think what's sparking mine is just the teaching, or talking to people, taking experiences I've learned, and like Savage Armory, Federal Arms, they're all coming out with new weapons. And literally somebody, hey, you want to do this? I was like, sure, I'll go do a photo shoot. Things that I have never done or whatever, I go and do it. And I'm like, okay. But I'm teaching the people that are around the camera. I've taught photography before too. So I'm teaching the guys around the camera what looks great, what doesn't, how to, like lock and load a pistol, how to shoot so that they can capture great video and stills. And safely. And I was teaching guys how to shoot. I mean, I'm up in Minnesota. Guys hunt like almost year round
Right.
to some degree, but they don't know how to use their weapon. So I've been teaching guys how
Tactically. You mean
act.
tactically?
No, no,
Yes.
no. Hunting rifles. I've been teaching them like trajectory of a bullet. The
Oh,
specifications on. This is how a bullet travels. It doesn't go straight. You know.
right.
And I'm like depending on the twist of your weapon. Which direction it's going to go out. A cold shot. You know. What are aim? What are those little mule dots in your sights? And I'm giving these. I find myself going to like these open ranges and indoor ranges, teaching people how to use their own personal weapons.
Isn't that shocking? And that's with Red Frog. The biggest thing I noticed, especially when we became the main training company at a gun club,
Mhm.
is that all these people who have been hunting for years and have, $22,000 worth of guns, the average man, all they have all this stuff, they've never taken formal training.
Never.
And hunters don't know tactical. So I thought everybody, I was thrown into it with special forces guys that trained me how to shoot. And so I thought everybody shot, a Glock, an AR, and a long range rifle. And so I'm like, oh, it's everybody's tactical. The hunter, and then we get into this world, and I find that people are, if they're hunting, that's all they know is hunting. They don't know how to defend their home. If they're a gamer, they know, their gaming thing, for but again, it's not, active threat. So
True.
there's tremendous opportunity to teach. And you get tremendous. You're a wonderful teacher because you taught me a lot.
I won't say that. I just have a wealth of knowledge that I like to share.
Well, not everyone can do it in a palpable manner where
True.
it's
True.
received and then effective. So you have that natural talent. So teaching is in your future, and I think taking what the government has spent millions on in training and applying it to a civilian application has been my theme with Red Frog, and you're kind of you're going in that direction. What is your next step in reinventing yourself?
I am actually looking at this is a little further out. I've been doing a lot of soul searching on motivating people, but my wife wants to open up a restaurant or something to that degree. So I'm trying to balance the two. I'm like, I can see that, but COVID and the economy and people out here are like, you know, how do you get a restaurant up and running in a market that people are a little shy to go out? So we've sort of stepped back from that. So I think I'm concentrating more on the teaching aspect of things in operations.
And that's a little bit about how we've connected and talked about your involvement with
Mhm,
Red Frog,
mhm.
and yeah. Anyway, all sorts of things in that world.
Yes, if you take nothing away, take this away. You're the only person that's going to stop you from doing anything in your life. Anything is you. All right. I don't care who yells at you, who talks bad about you, your environment, whatever. The only person that's going to stop you is you. I come from a very poor background, and I knew I wasn't going to college. I knew it. I was like, there is no money for freaking food, let alone college. So I signed up for the military, and from that point on, I was like, my choices have just been like, I'll let nothing stop me. So, with that in mind, I'm here and I still don't let things stop me. Where other people see excuses and the excuse benefits the person telling it, your excuse makes you feel better. It's not the excuse that someone else wants. Like, hey, the postal service is hiring. Well, I can't find a job. Why can't you find a job? If I could stumble out of a freaking bed and go get a job, I know you could get a job. So the only thing stopping people is their mind,
Yeah.
how they think about it, and the obstacles they put in their way. So that's what I would key on.
I feel strongly that attitude and mental outlook and not playing victim mentality is critical, and
Mhm,
blaming. So many people blame for the situation they're in,
mhm,
and they
mhm.
sit and wallow in that for a long time, and that just gets you nowhere. I've had a lot of things come my way, and if I focused on that, it would be, yeah. I
You'd be like in a closet, curled up with a freaking drink in your hand, like
Let me tell you what, yeah. And especially in these times where the world is kind of crazy, I think it's also opportunity to be like, okay, world, go be crazy. I'm going to go focus on, doing something purposeful and wonderful that contributes to bringing, enjoyment or structure to you. You said it really well. The consulting, I'm doing some medical consulting on the side, medical aesthetic consulting, and it's so fun to be able to come in. I don't want to say this too loud because they might hear it, but they come in for free even because you want to empower them with
Right.
structure. It's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, you guys aren't just seeing through the trees. I want to help you see the roadmap through the trees. And I
Mhm.
think one thing I share with you is that want or desire to take someone who isn't seeing the path and give them a little bit of a roadmap. They have to walk the roadmap. They have to drive
Right.
the car and they have to want to do it. But when can you help someone? I have people like that in my life right now, actually with Red Frog.
Mhm.
Some people that have come in and they're like, hey, you're so thick in the trees. Let me give you a little bit of, roadmap. And I'm like, oh my gosh, always take,
Right. Right.
information. And anyway, it's a lovely thing to
I,
give to people.
I'm going to caveat on what you said about the, you're so far in the woods and you can't see the path.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I was on an interview about a supply chain uh, partnership. And the thing that I told them is like everybody concentrates on problems. A problem comes up and you'll spend all day, weeks on it, just talking about the problem. I said, my mind is totally different. My mind, as soon as you start talking about a problem, my mind's in high gear. High gear. How do I get around that? Who do I talk to? Where do I go to like make this problem not a problem?
Yeah.
So that's how and I was telling these interviewers, I said, that's what I think. Where you guys might concentrate on that problem for the next, hour to whatever, I'm already past it. And they were like, huh? I was like, yeah, it's not a problem. It was just a piece of a puzzle that I needed to solve. I'm already past it. I'm solving it.
Yep.
And,
Move on
and
to
they were
solve.
like, wow.
Well, I'm going to end on one thing. The one thing I want to end on that just it's popping into my head that I meant to talk about at the beginning of this is anti-aging.
Mhm.
Okay, so you and I don't know if you'd say your age. I don't mind saying mine. I'm 53 and you're
I am 55.
and you're 55. I feel like another podcast I want to do down the road has to do with anti-aging, and I think people who are very good at we live long lives these days. No one, we live to be 100, or I plan to, and I think what gets
I said
I don't know if anyone else wants to do
108. I'm 108.
108.
Yes.
Okay, then okay. Well, then I want to live to be 105 at least or so. But you run and you're healthy. But I think anti-aging, just going into this, I'm going to kind of do the punt and set up for the next podcast is that attitude, the positive resilience, and the ability to reinvent yourself. We're on life, we're on this earth for a very long time, and you're not going to be doing the same thing the whole time. So you have to really go forward with positive attitude and the ability. And I think that helps. Everyone's like, what do you do for anti-aging? What do you use? And I'm like, honestly, it's mental, it's attitude.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, I don't have the money to go do all that all that stuff. And so like honestly, I think what helps people more than anything, and because I look at you and you look really young, and like and your energy is of a young person, and I think obviously it's the physical fitness and all the stuff, we're active people or whatever, but it's more than anything, it's attitude.
I know we're about to end, but I'm a caveat on your next podcast about that. Um, I mean, I've been around a lot of special ops, like, like a lot of big missions and stuff, and everybody's so freaking focused and like don't want to say anything. And, they're like, if you drop something, everybody's going to look at you like they're ready to shoot. And everybody's like, why are you so upbeat? I was like, why shouldn't I be? I'm like, guess what? We're here, we're doing things. This is fun. This is energetic. That's now. Why do I want to be somber and like just pouty face? So by saying that, if you look at any of the guys that are on the team that I used to be on, they look like they're, you know,
Tired.
80, 90 years old.
Mhm.
And it's, I think they did a study a long time ago when guys come out of the military, retire,
Mhm.
that by the age of 55, they die because they're in such a high level of stress for
Mhm.
20 years that they get out and they have no stress. And now it's like they age real fast because they don't have this stuff going on. They were never joyful or cheerful, and they just cease.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite of that. Yeah.
I noticed that,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, so I'm the
But it's a
opposite.
good thing. Don't ever lose it. And
Right.
Stephen's going to be more and more involved, and we're gonna talk more. But we're getting that look like we need to wrap it up. So thank you, Stephen, for making time today. This has been Shannon Monihan. Stop, listen, shoot.
Uh, Thanks for having me. If you take nothing away from this, be positive, and remember, you have no obstacles. Shannon, thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure. And like you said before, we could probably talk for days and days and days, jumping from subject to subject to subject. So I look forward to the next one.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here, Stephen. And until the next time.
All right.